Hi, you'll excuse me if I babble a bit, but I'm not used to speaking on camera. I'm a quiet sort of person who's normally used to writing and not exposing myself. But I thought I'd do a bit of an introduction to this sixth book, and I'm slowly working my way through them. Well, this one's called Executrix, and it was my first attempt done somewhere around about 2006 or 2008, something like that. It's uh, it's a book that I'm almost ashamed to. Uh, it's a book that I'm almost ashamed of because I couldn't write this sort of stuff nowadays. But a bit of a history. It was originally meant to be set in Roman times, but I got about 10 pages into it and realized that I just wasn't good enough a writer to write in that form. So I decided to write a dystopian novel. And maybe I succeeded or maybe I haven't, I don't know. I did send it to an agent in Scotland who was good enough to read it and wrote back and said that he thought it was a good novel. In fact, he thought it was the best thing that he'd read of its type since A Clockwork Orange, which pleased me, but I've still not managed to get it published, except on Amazon. But anyway, it's still there, out on Amazon, and it now joins the others that are out here on YouTube. I'm not very good at this speaking stuff. Anyway, anywho, there it is. So, as usual, there is a monologue to listen to now, made by AI. I think they've done quite a good job of it. So, have a listen, and if you like it, buy the book. It's it's very violent, and uh, and I'm ashamed of it nowadays. But what can you do? It's written, and there it is. I won't say enjoy, but there you go.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are descending into a world where justice is a commodity, capital punishment is a high-rating spectacle, and the line between executioner and celebrity is completely blurred.
It really is.
We are diving deep into the extraordinary journals of Livina, the chief executioner known simply as the Badge, who navigated a penal system utterly fused with corporate profit and televised violence.
And this is just a remarkable study in institutional dehumanization, isn't it?
Mm.
Our sources lay out such a comprehensive view of Livina's life,
They really do.
detailing her highly regimented training, the
Yeah.
sophisticated automation of the high prison system, and, well, the profound moral erosion that followed when her lethal job became this global performance art.
Performance art judged minute by billions of viewers worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Our mission today is to unpack this chilling context. How did a system intentionally designed to remove conscience ultimately break Livina? Not through external force, but, through exposure to basic human emotions.
Right. We need to understand the mechanics of this operation because they are deeply unsettling.
Definitely. And to start, let's maybe define the power structure. Because the entire ecosystem is dominated by Mergam,
The big one.
the overarching corporate entity,
Mm.
which runs high-tower transmissions. The narrator, Livina, she's the most visible representative. The chief executioner, universally known as the Badge.
Right, the Badge.
Her second in command is Jules, also one of the Badge. Below them, you've got Service Group A.
The Punishers.
That's them, the team of 8 full-time professional women who administer corporal punishment and overseeing the whole thing.
Yeah.
The chief executive officer of High Tower Transmissions, Mrs. Bennett.
And the central paradox, the thing that just leaps out, is performance. Livina explicitly notes that the global audience expected these executrices to be glamorous. Appearance wasn't optional. It was an essential part of the routine. It was literally written into the job description. We're talking highly specialized, highly violent work that requires being camera ready. Full makeup, expertly styled hair, the works.
It's the ultimate dark branding exercise, isn't it? Livina reflects that if she were to appear au naturel, as she put it, on the transmission, she'd look frightful, akin to a ghost.
Wow.
And that was just unacceptable. Bad for the brand, bad for the viewership figures that drove Mergham's huge profits.
So the public needed this polished product, an aesthetically pleasing dispenser of suffering.
Yeah, the violence had to be wrapped in beauty, which meant the daily ritual of transformation, the makeup, the hair, it became as important as the execution itself.
It suggests the target audience wasn't really seeking justice. They were seeking high production value entertainment.
Pretty much.
And if the star looked tired or stressed, the whole financial model was at risk. Scary.
Deeply.
Okay, so to understand Livina, we have to go back to the source of this cold professionalism, the training camp. Warrior's Wall.
That's right. Warrior's Wall, located near Brooke in southeast Britain. Livina was brought there as an infant orphan, along with 17 other infant girls.
Just babies. And the initial phase, it sounds like pure conditioning.
Oh, absolutely. Strategic conditioning. From ages 0 to 5, they were kept completely ignorant of the camp's real purpose.
So what did they do?
Well, they were fed enough, given time to play, and educated in fashion and style.
Fashion and style. Seriously, for what they were destined for.
I know, it seems utterly frivolous, doesn't it? But Livina notes that even by age 4, they knew something was profoundly different about their isolated lives. They sensed it.
Okay, so that feeling was there early on, but the innocence, it shattered.
Completely. On their 5th birthday, the beloved teachers disappeared, lessons stopped for a bit, and access to what she calls a new and violent world began.
Right. But the education that followed wasn't just, physical training, was it? It was bizarrely contradictory.
Yeah, this is where the sort of political calculus becomes fascinating. They underwent rigorous advanced studies, classics, languages, mathematics, highly intellectual stuff.
So they were expected to be brilliant, debate philosophy.
Exactly. While simultaneously engaging in highly visceral, violent practical training. Livina reports she learned to kill, slice, dice, prepare, and cook almost anything.
It sounds like a psychological attempt at compartmentalization or something.
Yeah.
Why the advanced studies? What was the point?
Well, Livina reports the sophisticated learning was specifically designed to offset our main purpose.
Offset, meaning?
She perceived this as a measure demanded by some kind of unseen oversight, a way to appease what she dismissively called unrelenting thugs, maybe in government, maybe the public sphere.
Oh, okay.
They needed to demonstrate that the punishers weren't merely brutes, but highly cultured, mentally superior women. The elegance of their minds was supposed to justify the brutality of their actions, make the whole thing seem palatable.
Palatable to international partners or regulators, maybe?
Could be. It's intellectual complexity used to excuse physical cruelty.
Grim. And meanwhile, the psychological pressure must have been extreme. You mentioned the progressive elimination.
Absolutely terrifying. The group shrunk so rapidly. From 17 original girls, only 8 remained by puberty.
8? Wow.
And by age 15, just 4 were left.
4 out of 17.
Yeah. And the most chilling detail is the systemic silence. If they inquired about a missing friend,
yeah,
nothing.
Gone. No explanation.
None. It reinforced the ruthless reality. The moment you failed, you vanished. Yeah. It bred this instinctual acceptance of loss and a focus purely on survival and performance. Don't ask, just survive.
So by 15, Livina makes it into the main camp. That was a reward.
Yes, a reward that included her own small house and servants.
Servants. And who were these servants? Not other trainees, surely.
No. They were forms. Prisoners serving sentences through slave labor. This is Livina's first real, visceral contact with the other condemned.
And there's an incident, right? Something small but significant.
Yes. She recounts this small, uncontrolled act of dominance, crushing a jet black beetle near her shoe. Just squashed it. And moments later, she observed a kneeling form. A man, standard gray prison garb, the ready yellow electronic tag.
And her reaction? Did she feel anything?
Initially, she says she felt sorry for the man. A flicker of residual empathy, maybe? But that fleeting emotion was instantly countered by Mrs. Morgan, their guardian, who described the forms as beasts, a little more than an animal.
Wow. Just laid it out like that.
Yep. And Livina admits that after hearing this definition drilled into her with relentless intensity, she did not disagree.
So that moment, that kind of seals the deal. The conditioning worked.
It seems so. The training was dedicated entirely to domination and death. The goal wasn't moral goodness, it was securing a charmed life for the Punishers, completely separate from the pathetic existence of the forms.
The process of stripping away empathy was complete. The creature before her was defined as less than human, justifying anything that came next.
Exactly. Dehumanization 101, executed perfectly.
So by 17, Livina, Jules, and the twins, the final four, they knew they were warriors of a kind.
And their training was so effective that their response to almost any stressor, lack of sleep, lack of nourishment, threat, had become cruelty.
Cruelty as first nature, she calls it, not just a learned response.
That's the phrase. And their preparation was meticulous. Once the group stabilized at 4, they were assigned individual task mistresses.
Monitoring them
Constantly. Compiling notes in these unreadable red book, the constant observation, the criticism, it honed them into vicious, irredeemably cruel instruments of the state.
Which all culminates in the final test, the
Yep.
first execution.
Yep. Livina's duty was a garroting. Form E7676, guilty of child abduction and sexual abuse. The sheet marked 8 indicated a personal approach.
What does personal approach mean? More complex? More severe?
It seems to imply something beyond the standard procedure, maybe requiring more direct, hands-on involvement, or perhaps tailored to the specific crime or form. The text suggests complexity or severity.
Okay, and the act itself.
Livina recounts it as surprisingly silent. Her focus was absolute. For 90 seconds, she twisted the wooden rod into the knot. Methodical.
In the aftermath, this part is quite something.
It really is. It provides this chilling clinical view of her detachment. She checked for a pulse, standard procedure. But then, most strikingly, she noted the form's diminishing erection and overall uselessness.
Uselessness, like a broken tool.
Exactly. It's an evaluation delivered with the cold precision of a biologist observing a specimen. It confirms the complete success of her training. Empathy totally eradicated.
So following that successful first execution, the business end begins. The bidding process, assigning the women to different prisons.
Right. And Livina apparently found this association of payment quite distasteful. She viewed it as polluting the purity of her rigorous training.
Interesting, like the art was being tainted by commerce.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But the business had to be done. The 2 twins, recognizable due to their Graves' disease, the bulging eyes.
Right, I remember that detail.
They were assigned to low prison. Their coming out execution involved a hanging,
And the form.
guilty of matricide and infanticide, but described as sad, brain-damaged, looking utterly alone and wretched. He actually garnered a number 3 on his execution sheet.
Meaning public sympathy.
Exactly. A lower number meant more public sympathy was registered. So executing him, despite that sympathy, that secured the twins' professional entry, proved they could do the job no matter the public feeling.
The whole system is just built on these cold calculations. Let's talk about the operational heart of this system. High Prison, Mergham's crown jewel. Livina describes the tower collection as a quartz crystal matrix.
Yeah, a modern wonder and a spectral treat for the eyes, she says. But functionally, it was a labyrinth and a tomb. Beautiful surface, deadly core.
And defined by total automated control, right?
Absolutely. Forms are electronically manacled and microchipped the moment they enter, then transported via these magnetic fast lifts to the silver cells.
Silver cells. Sounds sterile. Extremely. And automation handles all the daily necessities. Food, nourishment, even small luxuries. All delivered by conveyor belts and AI robots.
And here's that dark, strange contradiction again. A system designed for maximum isolation, maximum dehumanization. Yet the simple-minded forms sometimes treated those AI robots like pets.
Isn't that something? A profound attempt to find connection, any connection, in this automated tomb. Shows you something about basic human or maybe just creaturely needs.
It really does. But the real power center isn't visible, is it? It's downstairs.
Way downstairs. In sub-basement C, the electronic cynosure, she calls it, takes up half the footprint of the main tower. This is the nervous system of the entire enterprise, constantly collecting and collating data.
Okay, let's delve into what Sub-Basement C actually does, because this is what drives the whole commercial reality show aspect.
Right. It manages 2 critical functions beyond just keeping records. First, the health monitoring systems, MAA.
MAEC. What's that stand for? Massive Automated Assessment and Correlation. MAC scans everything urine, breath, sweat to establish a baseline health profile for every single form, Any deviation, any change is immediately flagged.
Total biological surveillance. And the second function.
Psychological assessment by movement recognition.
Wow. How does that work?
By tracking movement patterns within the silver cells, subbasement C can instantaneously analyze a form's psychological state. It alerts administrators to any deviation, any potential unrest, signs of plotting, maybe even despair.
This goes so far beyond standard prison surveillance. It's total behavioral modeling. Mergem knows precisely when a form is most vulnerable or maybe most likely to resist.
Exactly, allowing them to manage the operational risk of the talent, the forms, during the televised punishment sessions. They know who's breaking, who's stable, who needs watching.
Incredible control. And the actual punishment happens where?
In the blocks. 5 separate arenas on the ground floor of Tower A. They were apparently redesigned at some point for aesthetic and financial reasons. Granted originally, then something else.
Aesthetics again. Even the punishment zones needed to look right.
Yep. Soundproof walls, sloping floors for efficient cleanup,
Grim detail.
and cameras, microphones, positioned 20 feet above the action, capturing everything for the broadcast.
And after the execution or punishment, the bodies.
Dealt with by the night bodies.
Who were they?
Long-term recidivist forms. People with absolutely no hope of rehabilitation, essentially sentenced to permanent slave labor, cleaning up the remains of their peers.
That just speaks volumes about the moral degradation of the system, doesn't it? Using prisoners to dispose of other prisoners.
This is the ultimate indignity, yeah. As for the rules inside the blocks, the punishers had to maintain a high professional standard. They were obligated to use only color-coordinated, home office-approved equipment.
Color-coordinated? Seriously?
Apparently. Standard red nylon rope, specific knives, whips, canes, everything approved. Everything matching the brand, probably.
But the executrices, despite their severe training, they still had this little bit of rebellion.
Yeah, an in-house fun tradition, Livina calls it. Attempting to sneak in unauthorized implements. A little defiance.
But only on punishment days?
Strictly. Never execution days. Those required a certain theatrical dignity, apparently. Can't mess with the solemnity of the main event.
Which brings us to the core financial engine, the whole schedule, dictated by viewership.
Totally. Execution events paid the most. The executrices got a tiny cut, 0.05%.
Not much incentive there.
No. But the real money was for Mergem. Sub-basement C collated public viewing figures constantly, and the daily timetable was adjusted on the fly.
On the fly.
Meaning if Livina was drawing huge numbers at 2 p.m., the schedule would literally be changed to ensure viewers could tune in for her next session immediately after. Maximize eyeballs, maximize ad revenue.
That's terrifying efficiency. Mergem was literally running a reality TV schedule based on pain and suffering.
Precisely. And the voting system is incredibly telling about Mergem's cleverness. You have the public doing scale voting.
Indicating how much they wish the form to suffer. Just
Yeah. Basically gauging viewer numbers and engagement through expressed sadism.
And then there was the voting by the forms.
Right. This illusion of control given to the forms themselves. Forms in their silver cells could vote, ostensibly for the next execution or punishment.
But it was a sham.
Totally. Mergem was smart. Livina realized these votes made almost no statistical impact because you had billions voting worldwide.
So it was a psychological trick.
Exactly. Make the criminals feel like they had a voice, give them a tiny bit of agency, but structurally ensure they could not manipulate the outcomes or cause the executrices to fail their duties. Keep the show running smoothly.
The genius, or maybe the evil genius, of Mergem's mathematical department. Livina mentions them, right? Staffed by bright young things from university.
Uh-huh. She believed if that department ever rebelled, High would almost certainly collapse internally within a week. They were the ones engineering this system that looked participatory but was functionally rigged.
And the system thrived on the worst impulses of the audience.
Absolutely. Livina observed that voters frequently requested illegal acts, things like removing limbs, plucking out eyes, just horrific stuff.
And the punishers?
Service Group A was trained to ignore these demands, maintain professional standards, but it clearly demonstrated the morally iniquitous nature, as Livina put it, of the masses who were funding and driving the entire enterprise. They wanted barbarity.
Okay, let's walk through a typical day for one of these punishers. The roster was 24 hours rotating, but the core work hours were
12 p.m. to 6 p.m. After morning routines, exercise, ablutions, meal prep starting at 5 a.m.
And the punishments fell into two main arenas.
Yes. Pain, which was apparently chosen more frequently in winter.
Interesting seasonal variation.
Humiliation, which surprisingly was more popular in summer.
Humiliation? How did they even quantify that?
Well, it had defined levels. The lowest ritual was simply the form disrobing in private. Then the next level up, psychologically injurious, forcing the form to disrobe in the block itself in front of everyone. But the most voted for, the top tier, involved the guards or the punishers actually tearing or cutting away the form's clothes. Maximum degradation.
And the rule for that highest level?
If humiliation was the aim, no underclothes were permitted. Absolute exposure.
Livina gives specific examples, doesn't she?
She does. A petty thief got 6 cane strokes. An old butcher was carved on the arm. Small, specific acts.
But also more severe ones.
Oh, yes. The most harrowing example involves an arsonist, described as a weeping, weak form. He was subjected to 12 strokes of a studded, red-handled leather paddle.
Studded paddle.
And he lost consciousness on the 11th stroke, meaning that last stroke was delivered to an insensible body.
It wasn't fast, brutal violence. It was methodical, serialized suffering, designed for maximum televised exposure, maximum drama.
Exactly. Every stroke counted for the viewers.
So Livina herself becomes this immense celebrity through all this, yet she cultivated a highly controlled private life to cope.
Absolutely. She had to maintain an elaborate disguise, hairpieces, different colored contact lenses, just to go out in public. All 8 punishers did this, apparently, to avoid unwanted attention, autograph requests.
The price of fame in that world?
And her internal life was this study in contrasts. She lived in a minimalist flat, was a vegetarian, prepared her own meals unlike her colleagues who often relied on staff.
Trying to maintain some control, maybe, some normalcy.
Perhaps. She owned a Guthrie chair, enjoyed an extensive west-facing balcony for quiet time, and most fascinating, her collection. Authentic chiaroscuro photographs and oleographs of the Blessed Virgin.
Wow, the Virgin Mary, in the home of an executioner.
A sacred juxtaposition against her profane profession. Really stark.
And her hobby, also quite telling.
Sewing bookmarks. For her collection of wild children, which were her books, she'd do this while simultaneously monitoring the transmission screens.
Multitasking between domesticity and death.
Pretty much. And she was obligated to review fan mail, including letters detailing intricate wishes to be tied up and punished.
Ugh. How does she react to that?
She found it revolting, yet she knew intellectually that this perverse interest was the financial trickery that kept them all employed. She genuinely strove to believe her purpose was societal protection, not just satisfying the public's lust for pain. A constant internal battle, it seems.
But the system, driven by this public thirst for novelty, for escalation, inevitably pushed the boundaries too far, didn't it? Leading to a profound moral crisis for Livina. It starts with the male punisher, Rupert.
Ah, yes, Rupert. He was introduced specifically because female viewers were demanding a male punisher for female forms.
Purely an entertainment and demographic play by Murgham.
Absolutely. And his big assignment was the notorious Bethany Cowell, nicknamed the Sex Maid.
The details of her crime are horrific.
Truly. Convicted of the torture of 72 children aged 5 to 12, but she hadn't been given the death sentence because she never actually killed them. A loophole in the capital crime statutes.
So Rupert, despite his training and presumably his camera-friendly looks, he couldn't handle it.
No. He lacked the necessary stamina, the concentration. During Cowell's punishment, using a leather bat on her face, he had a complete meltdown.
What happened?
Livina describes him descending into a dementia. Just kept striking Cowell even after blood flowed from her ear. He lost it completely.
And Livina had to step in.
She had to cut the transmission feed instantly and then physically intervene. Slapped him across the face with the back of her gloved hand to force him to stop.
Wow. And Cowell?
She died hours later. From a stroke, apparently caused by chronic hypertension, likely exacerbated by the event. Rupert fled, became a wanted man.
And Livina's reaction to all this?
Utter disgust. Disgusted by the failure, the scandal, the whole situation. She refused to attend Cowell's high-profile funeral. Drew a line there.
The Rupert fiasco, combined with an ongoing war Livina mentions, triggered massive legislative changes, right? The general event.
That's it. And this was a huge shift. The executrices, the 8, were entirely cut out of the final decision process for punishment.
So they lost that last veneer of professional discretion, that control.
Completely gone. It was, as Livina termed it, the system's descent into a nadir of travesty.
Because the range of punishments just exploded.
Exploded. Now officially sanctioned. The use of fire, oil, electricity, hammers, weights, stretching devices, things previously unthinkable.
Livina saw this as barbaric.
Utterly barbaric. She noted it threatened to bring back the demoniacal parts of history. Boiling, impalement, things society was supposed to have moved beyond.
And yet, despite her revulsion, she used these new rules.
Yes, in a very cold act of maybe professional calculation or perhaps grim necessity. She modified the execution of the Bradbury twins, who were convicted of matricide.
How did she modify it?
She delivered them slowly, excruciatingly, and with as little dignity as possible. She framed it as an appeasement to their dead mother.
So she used the new barbarism to enact what she saw as a more fitting, if horrific, justice in that specific case.
It seems so. A highly publicized, innovative execution designed to show she could still operate, maybe even excel under the horrific new rules, adapting to the depravity.
The internal tension within Service Group A, though, it couldn't hold forever. It finally exploded with the tragedy involving Jules and Form Puckard.
Right. Puckard, guilty of dangerous driving, but apparently very popular with viewers.
Popular? Why?
The text doesn't explicitly say why. Maybe he had a certain charisma on screen, or perhaps his crime resonated differently. But the key point is he was popular. And while Jules was punishing him, he managed to strike her.
Strike her. A form hitting one of the badge.
Unprecedented. He bloodied her nose, humiliated her publicly, live on camera. No form had ever successfully struck a punisher before, let alone Jules, Livina's number 2.
How did Jules react?
With terrifying calculated vengeance, she liberally applied Synone gas.
HG, happy gas, keeps them conscious through the pain.
Exactly, designed to maximize conscious suffering. And Livina recounts Jules just tearing and slicing Puckard's body with such ferocity. His lungs, internal organs were exposed. He was left hanging limp as a wet and bloodied rag.
Livina's description of it is quite graphic.
She even uses a religious analogy, rarely for her, noting the scene looked like watching Christ die. That's how brutal it was. Puckard died right there on the table.
And the consequences for Jules.
Immediate and harsh. The institution, Murgum, couldn't tolerate this. Jules was immediately prosecuted for murder, found guilty, and given the capital sentence.
Executed how quickly?
Within the statutory 3 weeks. And significantly, with no preceding punishment sessions. Just straight to execution.
Suggests they wanted it over with fast. A PR disaster.
Absolutely. Eliminate the problem quickly. And Livina...
She had to execute her rival, her colleague.
Yes. Out of what she perceived as respect for her longtime rival and professional sister, she executed Jules herself. Used the garroting technique swiftly to ensure her death was painless.
But that moment, it affected Livina deeply.
Profoundly. She found this act of professional detachment, executing Jules, to be intensely cold. It made her feel intensely lonely and vulnerable for the very first time in her life. The system she served, the system that defined her, had just forced her to destroy the closest thing she had to family within that structure.
That moment of vulnerability cracked open by Jules' death, it seems like that was the turning point. The moment that shattered Livina's own carefully constructed life, she falls victim to the ultimate taboo.
A forbidden romance. With Form 23454, Winter, serving just 1 year for public disorder.
And Winter was the complete opposite of her.
The total antithesis of her training. Gentle, a humanitarian, the yin to her yang, as Livina saw it. She came to desperately rely on him after executions.
To soothe the former? Is that the phrase?
Yes, to help her process and move past the violence she had just committed. Their compatibility was immediate, powerful, despite his status as a form.
But the romance had to be kept secret, a total deception.
Oh, completely. Livina manufactured reasons for their twice-weekly meetings. Eventually, she justified the visits by citing Winter's impressive handwriting, anything to get access.
But there was conflict there, too. He couldn't handle her job.
Exactly. Winter was in denial about her work. As their relationship deepened, he started offering excuses not to visit after her execution days. He just couldn't reconcile the woman he loved with the badge. The contradiction was too much for him.
And then the affair gets exposed. How?
Winter is charged with the murder of a fellow form, right there in the silver cells.
But Livina knew that was impossible.
Immediately. She knew the prison operated under 100% optical coverage. There was video of everything. She realized instantly it was a sophisticated frame-up. A rat lurked, she thought.
And she suspected who?
Veal, a deeply despised, highly suspicious employee, rumored to be a Murgum spy working directly for Mrs. Bennet. The timing was too perfect.
This just shows the extreme level of corporate corruption Livina was up against. If the optical coverage was 100%, the evidence must have been manufactured, right? Maybe at the sub-basement sea level.
Very likely. Manipulation of movement recognition data, maybe MAC data, planting false evidence within the system itself, high-tech frame-up.
And then the pressure intensifies massively because Livina discovers something else.
Yeah, she realizes she's pregnant with Winter's child, Valeria.
This must have been the ultimate shock, the ultimate realization of her own humanity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That stopped precise menstrual cycle that confirmed her condition. It just broke the emotional constraints of Warrior's Wall forever. She wasn't just the badge anymore. She was a mother-to-be.
And Mrs. Bennet's reaction? Predictably ruthless.
Utterly ruthless. Claimed the pregnancy made the Executrix unprofessional, compromised the brand, the image, and then Bennett demanded Livina schedule Winter's 11 punishment sessions and his ultimate execution.
Forced her into an impossible choice. Torture the man she loved for the cameras,
Or save him somehow, and risk losing her child, maybe even her own life or freedom.
What did she do? Winter's appeal failed.
It failed. Livina chose compassion. In the end, she executed Winter swiftly herself, garroting again, ensuring he would have an easy death, saving him from the inevitable, horrific torture that would have been inflicted by the new, notoriously cruel deputy, Elaine.
It was the deepest act of love possible within that horrific system, executing him to save him from worse.
Exactly. A terrible, terrible choice.
And the betrayal, the loss, the emotional collapse, it drove Livina to the brink.
Completely. She attempted suicide, sat in a cold bath with a knife, ready to end it, but became catatonic.
Couldn't go through it.
In that final desperate moment, she realized she couldn't complete the act. She saw the murderer as this internal shadow, a product of the conditioning, but not her true self. Her body, her core self, physically rejected the final self-directed act of violence.
When this crisis leads to the deepest shock of all, her friend Victoria investigates the frame-up.
Right. And recovers a hard drive from Veal's quarters, which reveals not just incriminating evidence about the frame-up, but this explosive family secret.
The owner of Mergam, the shadowy figure behind everything.
Turns out to be Livina's own father, the man who built the entire empire, the camp that stole her childhood, the system that employed her.
Her father, and Veal, the spy who betrayed her.
Veal was his half-sister.
Yeah.
Making Veal Livina's aunt.
Oh my God. Her entire world was engineered and controlled by the very family she never knew. The betrayal by Veal wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal, dynastic.
A stunning revelation. And the saga takes another bizarre turn when Veal herself is arrested.
Arrested for what?
Charged with the cold-blooded murder of an elderly disabled night body form, throat cut in Block 3. Veal claims she was being framed, but the evidence gathered by Victoria and presumably Mergam's own systems was overwhelming.
So Livina, recovering from her own near-death experience, is assigned Veal's execution, her aunt.
Yes, the moment of ultimate professional and familial reckoning. But as Livina began reading the charge sheet,
She couldn't do it?
her mouth unaccountably filled with the hideous and acidic taste of bile. She was physically broken by it all.
She actually vomited.
Yes, vomited right over Veal's execution dress. Caused Veal to scream. The execution had to be paused. This was the final definitive failure of the Warrior's Wall conditioning. Her body, having rejected suicide, now physically rejected the act of professional murder, especially against her own family.
What happened next?
Livina was subsequently incapacitated by meningitis, likely brought on by the immense psychological and physical stress. When she finally recovered, she learned Veal had been executed in her absence, suggesting very strongly that Mergam's owner, her father, had intervened, and the scandal quickly, decisively protect himself and maybe spare his daughter from any further implication or trauma. Tie up the loose end.
So the downfall ends with a fragile kind of salvation.
It seems so. Livina's original sentence regarding her conduct with Winter was commuted, but the condition was severe. She was never to see or search for Valeria again, just confirming Mergam's vast power, even over the judiciary.
But she retired, got out.
Yes, retired, financially free, thanks to her years of service to her house in Thorpe Bay. But the story has this final, quiet note of redemption. Victoria, her friend, acting entirely on her own accord, eventually brought Valeria back to her. Apparently, the CEO, Mrs. Bennett, had relented under pressure, or maybe just decided it wasn't worth enforcing anymore.
So she got her daughter back.
Yes. Valeria, still a toddler, remained close. Confirming Livina's identity was now anchored by motherhood and love, not just by her horrific past profession. A chance at a different life.
It is just astonishing, isn't it, to track Livina's arc? The system, so meticulously designed to remove all traces of humanity through that brutal training, it ultimately failed, not because of some external force, but because Livina was exposed to the complexity of love, motherhood, betrayal, basic human stuff.
The purity of her training, as she saw it, was just incompatible with her own capacity for human emotion. It couldn't hold.
And that system itself failed, didn't it? Not just on her, but morally. it failed because its core mechanism was corruption disguised as justice.
Yeah. Livina eventually realized that the punishment she administered, supposedly for society's protection, was actually being driven by the morally iniquitous masses, as she called them, people who just wished the system would descend into pure spectacle and historical barbarity.
And what's fascinating and deeply disturbing is that the architect of this entire mechanism, the corporate owner of Murgum,
Was Livina's father.
the man who engineered the camp that stole her childhood, profited immensely from her pain and televised suffering, and ultimately forced her, indirectly or directly, to execute the man she loved.
And he remained untouchable, the ultimate source of the system's cruelty, hidden in the shadows.
Livina struggled so fiercely between that ingrained professional duty and her emerging conscience. She believed in order, but the order she served was funded by chaos and public bloodlust.
A terrible bind to be in.
So, we leave you, the learner, with this final provocative thought. Given that Livina ultimately realized the masses were demanding and paying for greater cruelty, and that her own father was the instrumental force behind the system that stole her life, what is the true cost of outsourcing justice to the dictates of global entertainment? And when a judicial system becomes indistinguishable from the crime it purports to punish, who is ultimately responsible for the outcome? Think about that tension between conscience and the professional duty Livina fought so hard to maintain right up until her body physically rejected it. Where does the responsibility truly lie?